Hello again, I'm Beatrice Fedeli, and for today's lesson we're going to be tackling one thing that I believe is very, very important, which it is water control. Yes, all the other things are important too, value, color mixing, but because when we are painting in this medium, we paint, the paint plays along, but water paints with us. How much water to have is very important. So because of that, this is perhaps one of the things that some of my students, especially the beginners, struggle a little bit the most. And that's why today we're gonna tackle this lesson. So let's jump into it. Okay, so here we are with one of the most important things for watercolor, which is water control. There's one that has many, many layers. I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as possible today, more on a beginning level. And if needed, we can make down the road another one with more explanation. So I have my palette here. This is with my paint. My paint is bone dry. And we need to activate this paint. By the way, palettes come empty and I just fill them up with tubes of paints that I add, let them dry. You can also buy pans, which is the same thing, just smaller. But how do we activate this? There are two different methods. One, you can get your spray bottle. You can buy this cheaply any place. And then before I start my paint, I will put it on my palette and get my paper ready or whatever. That way I give time for the water to get deep into the paint. Another way to do it is by bringing with your brush some water onto these paints, and depending on the one that you're going to use. Let's just make a tiny little bit of time to talk about the brush, the part of a brush. This is your tip, and that's the most important thing, the one that you're going to pay once you wet it. The one you're going to pay the most money on your brushes is so that you can get a good tip. And then this is the body of the brush, and where it touches the metal, that's the part where you can absorb and take out some of the water out of there. Okay? Don't get with, this is the don't get your brush and try to get all this water and rub in order to get the color, because you're going to lose your tip. So if you don't want to use the spray bottle, the other way to do it is like get your brush, dip in water. Let me see if you can see it from here. Make it really saturated so that you can drop water. And instead of putting the water there, drop the water onto your wells of paint. Get it a little like that, and that will activate. You can swirl a little. Once you have the water, that way you protect your tip, and then you start getting some of that color out onto your brush. Now, how much water are you're gonna get is gonna depend on how much time you go back and forth into. Like if I come over here with a lot of water, I'm gonna make it more and more diluted, get more and more of it. I can also bring, just if I wanna make that color really light, I could dip my brush into water and bring only water and make it more. And now for the paint consistency, let's just put that on a pause for a minute. Let's finish a little bit of this and then we'll move on to that. Get into the habit of dipping your brush. The more you dip it, the longer you keep it out there, the more water more saturated it's gonna get. Let me get it here into my paper towel. Most of the time, you're just gonna need a little dip, and then ready to come over here, get the paint. Then if you wanna switch colors, you need to make sure then that you take all the color out and your water, and then you will know that by the time you come in your paper towel, it will be clean. I like to get into the habit of mixing it into my palette. Here we're gonna use some scrap paper. If I get from here and then I go straight on to here, I'm gonna get a lot of color. And sometimes I want it like this, but not to start, not at the very beginning, because I want to build my layers. So if I rinse it, dab it, take a little bit of this and put it over here, I can then control more and have less pigment on it. Okay? So that's one thing. Another way you can do it too is like go like this and get in the habit of either tap it. Make sure, another thing, sometimes water, I don't know if you can see it, sometimes water sticks into your ferrule, into the metal part, and you don't want, I have one big drop right here, I don't know if you can see it, you don't want to start painting and all of a sudden that gets into you and then they can mess up your painting. I don't know if you can see it, how the drop came out there. So if that happens, just wipe it out. But you can dip, shake, or you can either go a little bit like that and take some of the water out on the edge of your water container. Now, the other thing that pays apart are what kind of brushes you are using. For example, this is my synthetic Escoda Perla, and these brushes don't carry a whole lot of water. I use these mop brushes. These mop brushes are made to carry a lot of water. If I can dip it right here, this will carry, I don't know if you can see the shine over here. This can carry a lot of water, and there is a place for them for making big washes, especially if I'm gonna work wet on wet, or just because I like to paint very loose. So these are made of natural hair. I think these are squirrel, and it comes in different sizes. So, but you see how beautiful of a point it gives me that we were talking about before. That's what you want to preserve. Don't start drying in a dry painting. Don't start grabbing it because you will lose the point, and that's what you pay your money for. Go to the mix, because these are the mix brushes. This is a silver velvet, and these are made, half of it is squirrel hair and the other half is synthetic. So these ones also carry water, but not as much. They get a lot of water, but not as much as the mop brush will. Look at my mop, dip it, and then let me show you here. With the mop, there's a lot of water. With my mix, it's less. And then, let's rinse these ones. And then if I use a synthetic one, which is my Escoda Perla, get over here, then it's less. Now another way is, you see how my paint is puddling up by here? If I wanted to make a wet on wet, that will be good. But here I also have a little puddle. If I'm painting something that it requires more detail, I really don't want that because I don't have a lot of control of where my color is gonna go. So, and this other one, as you can see, the pigment has spread more. And I mean, I could get these with these brushes. I will just have to make sure that I take a lot of the water out before I bring them into my paper. Now, if this happens to you, you can do one or two things. You can let this move it around and see where it goes and dry, or you can get your brush here. Since we started with these ones, let's just go back with this dryer. So there is right now it's a dumb brush, and then put it over here and pick some of that up. My brush is acting as a sponge, picking some of the pigment and water that it was left on my paper. Okay, so now I'm using the 140 pound paper. Let's just see how much amount of pigment to water we want to get. I dip my brush, I give it a shake, or I squeeze some of the water. Let's just use one of the colors that I spray, say the blue. I still got a a drop of water out there that is too much. I could go back or I could go a little bit here. Get my color and I start activating that. If I want this color to be liquidy, I will go back into water again, come back to my paint and get more. If I want to make this thicker, that it has more pigment, I will go back again without going again into the water. So the water that is in my brush, I will come and get more paint, and I can keep doing that till I make it thicker like that. So this paint is, let me show you, has more pigment. It stays wherever I put it. Let me rinse this, take all the water out, and let's see this one that we did first. And as you can see, it's lighter because we only went one time. We only dip one time for the pigment. So if you want to get, one problem that I see sometimes with my students is that they come over here, they go 2 or 3 times into the pigment, and then they say, oh, this is a very thick color. Then they start bringing water, and then they end up with huge piles, wasting a lot of paint, and then just for a tiny little thing that they had to do right here. Watercolor paint lasts a long, long time. You just have to get a little bit, goes a long ways. And then this one becomes too watery anyway. Okay. Now let's just talk about different kinds of papers. Yes, depending on what kind of brushes you have, you're gonna carry more or less water. But hey, depending on what kind of paper you're gonna use, you're gonna need more or less water as well. So I have some scrap paper here. This is a 140-pound cold press. I have a hot press piece of paper, and I have a 300-pound cold press paper. So most of the time, the majority of us will paint in the 140 pound. Let's just move this a little bit here to the side. Let's put it here. Okay. So I like to paint with 3 different consistencies. What I call the very watery paint, the medium one, and then the very thick one, right? My watery consistency paint, I dip my brush, put it here. You can use some of these ones, but let's start with a new one. Bring the color, bring the straw water, and I use this watery consistency for my underpainting. I start my paintings with this. Let's just say, imagine that we are making, maybe I want it a little even more watery. It's a lot of water here. Now, I can go straight from there onto the paper, which I will get the pile that I was talking to you at the beginning, or I could come over here, making my brush, pick this up, and before I put it into the paper with a little bit of paper towel, I take some on the part with my brush and my metal mitt, take some of that out, and then come over here and start doing my painting. You see how by doing this, I have the pail, but I don't have the pile that I have over here. Now, if that happens, like I said, take your water, dip it, and use your brush as if it was a sponge, and then just pick some of that. I like to start my paintings with this, almost like if it is an underpainting, my very watery part, especially, I mean, for anything. I establish my colors, but for flowers, things like that, it is very good to go pale, and then let it dry, and then bring a bit less water, the medium consistency paint that I use. Get in the habit, take your water out, Dump it a little bit into your paper towel. Now we go again into get more paint, less water. I'm not gonna dip it here. I'm gonna start dipping it here. I go again if I need to go, but without dipping in the water. And I can come and I'm making it darker. If I need to get more, I go. And you see it's the same color, but my color starts to look darker. Now, I know that I still have plenty of water because you see as I move over here, my paint moves. It doesn't stay put in one place. Now, if I want to get, this is my medium, if I want to get the darkest one, which I usually will use for the last details at the very end of my paintings, I will go back again, get as much pigment as I can, and this time wherever I put the paint, it will stay and it will be harder to spray it. See, it stays out there and I'm having a little bit of a difficulty to move it around. But if I wanted to use it for very small details, say eyes, or I just want to put a frame in a door, things like that, I want this paint to stay wherever I put it. You see when I go, how you can see those white marks? That's the white part of the paper. It means my brush is getting kind of dry with water, but I still have a lot of pigment. Now, if you have all this color right here, you can also do it in the opposite way. I can dip a little bit on the water with all the paint that I have here, switch it around to mix it. Now I'm activating it and I can go back to that second by adding a little bit of water at a time into my brush with the pigment that I was having by using the thicker paint. If I keep adding more water and just bring it to the paint, then I will try to bring it lighter. Or if I keep bringing extra water, I bring it even more lighter. So with water, as you can see, we control also how dark or light our paint will get. But now let's see what happens if I use this, but I use a different kind of paper. Say for example, my cold press paper. I'm gonna need cold press, the surface is shinier. This is cotton, so when I wet it, it's kind of like the pores of the paper open, so the water gets in, and I need that extra water. Because all the water that stays in the surface here, okay, let's just put one side by side so that you can see. Let's see. I'm gonna dip my brush, take the color that I was having there, take the excess water, dump a little. Let's just use this. This was the very liquidy one. If I put it here, you see, it stays. And I have a little pile out there. Now I'm gonna put it on my hot press paper. It becomes even more liquidy because the water just stays out there on the surface. And what happens if I use it on my 300-pound paper? Because this paper is so thick, it soaks the water more and it doesn't give me the pile that I was having in this other one. So the amount of water that you use in your paintings is gonna depend on the type of paper that you are using to paint those paintings. And also how much water you bring from your water pile onto your water, onto your color or your palette is gonna depend on what kind of brush you use. If you want a lot of water, then you're gonna have to bring more. If you have a brush that carries a lot of water to start with, you, with a little bit of dip of that, will pick up quite a bit. See, I went 3 times without wetting it because this brush brings a lot of water. If I try to do that with this, I can do it here, and I will start running out a little bit by the time I go to the end. So this is the very, very, very basics of water control. We can go more in deep as to how to, I mean, there is one thing called the tea, the milk, the butter, and those are important to know, but not for the get-go. The most important thing for you to know as you're starting is take the water out of your metal part, get in the habit of dipping your brush, taking out excess water, either by going like that or also by putting it a little bit in your paper towel. Wet your paints ahead of time, switch it a little bit around, and if you need to make more loose, add extra water. If you want to pick more pigment once it's activated, then go back and forth without dipping it again into your water. And if you do this, you will have a very good start to be successful with your paintings. Once again, if you go darker, say you get a lot of pigment over here, oops, you get a lot of pigment in your brush, and if you make a thick, oh, hold on, let me tell you one more thing that I see do a lot of my students too. They go straight from the water, they come over here, and then they go straight onto the paper. Yes, you can do that if you want to make detailed work. But I will always advise you to move it, even if it's in one dry part of your palette, move it around. You will spread your paint better. You will get it more around different parts of your brush instead of having it only on your tip. And then you could do, just use it over here. Then you can do thin lines if you have the pigment in your tip. But if you have also pigment in the body of your brush, then you can make them bigger and see how the paint is everywhere and expressed. So get in the habit of switch it around. Don't just go like here, pick it up into your tip, and that's it. Move it around, have it on the tip, and have it on the body as well. Okay, give it a try and see what you think. Let me know in the comments. And practice. Hope that you learned something. As always, watching videos and explanations is the beginning, but you need to get your brush and you need to practice, because practice is where the learning really, really happens. So I encourage you to do it. Practice, be gentle with yourself, have fun in the process, and then see how little by little you are progressing. I'll see you in my next video. Thank you for being here.